Welcome back, my beautiful listeners who always tune in each and every week to the podcast. It's the Limelight highlight for those of you joining us that are new. I'm your host, Jonathan Rosario, and I'm making a couple changes. No more intro music. I'm working on something a little cooler, but I'm not very tech savvy, so it's going to take some time. So for now, you're going to have that crazy little sound effect bringing in the podcast. But back to the podcast. So it is March 1st, which means it is Women's History Month, which means a lot to me because personally I was raised by nothing but women. Got a ton of women in my family. My mom raised me. My grandmother raised me. Not taking anything away from my father, but he was more of a, we have more of a friend relationship. I guess it's because I'm a boy. I'm a man. I'm a guy, guy code things. But anyway, back to Women's History Month. Now, I was actually pretty surprised because apparently every year there's a different theme for Women's History Month. This year's theme was last year's theme was Nevertheless She Persisted, which is honoring women who fight all forms of discrimination against other women. And I didn't know that was even a thing. I didn't know they had themes. So this year's theme is Visionary Women, Champions of Peace and Nonviolence. And man, doing a little bit of research for this podcast, there's a lot of them. Almost too many to choose, which is not a problem. Not a bad problem to have at all. So I wanted to, kind of bring this one up and share why I think it's important to discuss and speak about, because a lot of people don't even know Women's History Month is the month of March. And from my research, just like I did with Black History Month, it actually started with just March 8th being International Women's Day. And that was all the way back in 1911. So you got to think, 1911, women didn't really have the right to do damn near anything, which I find pretty astounding because from all the way back then, that's kind of where some of the origins have traced and started from. But women's, actually, it started 41 years ago with, in Sonoma, California, the Education Task Force initiated a Women's History Week celebration in 1978. So from 1911 to 1978, it took 41 years, but it took that many years to actually implement a celebration of just a week, only a week. In 1978, 41 years ago, that's not even that long. But anyway, the reason I bring that up is because it's only 2019. From that point on, we've just, the way America has kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Advanced. And we still got a lot to go. I'm not saying we don't. But just to see how it started all the way from back then to now. So until 1980, you got President Jimmy Carter. He declared March 8th National Women's History Week. So I guess the week of March 8th is National Women's History Week. 1980, man, that's not long ago at all. It just blows my mind how far along we've come, or rather, how not as far as we should be going, from back all the way then. So I think that has a lot to do with technology. The way we can reach people. Back in 1911, women didn't have much rights because there wasn't much press, like the way it could get around, the way it can get today. It's almost nowhere near. You can't compare it. So like, okay, for example, you got in 1872, Victoria Woodhull. She ran for president, the first woman to actually run for president. When I was reading about this, it was about, there was some like details that didn't really get around for people to really get hung up on. Like, she wasn't the age you should be, the minimum age. I think she was still turning 35. So she was 34 running for president all the way in 1872. So I thought that was pretty cool because all the way back then you had the first woman running for president. And think about it, 1872. And all the way up until 2016, with Hillary Clinton becoming the first woman nominated for president by a major party like the Democratic Party. That time in between, she's been Hillary Clinton's been the first to get that far, and which speaks volumes to how much groundwork we still have to make, So, and basically the reason I'm bringing this up is up until 1980, with, Jimmy Carter declaring March 8th as National Women's History Week, schools started, celebrating and joining in on that whole, national holiday. I guess I don't know if you consider it a holiday, but National Day. And they're all recognizing it, and a bunch of schools are doing that. And up until 1986, only 6 years after he actually declared March 8th National Women's History Week, 14 states adopted it and declared it March as Women's History Month. So up until 1986, Women's History Month was not much was going on. You got to think back then, women had just a few jobs. Not even jobs. Sometimes women couldn't even go out to work. They were expected to wash clothes, cook, clean the house, watch the kids, all the womanly duties. And with the way society has changed and developed, we got more and more women, speaking out. We have activists. We have just the whole, in 2016, you had the Women's March, everybody wearing those pussy hats, and it was all about women empowerment. And there was just a ton of women just walking in solidarity. And then you got the Me Too movement coming around now, a lot of injustices that have happened to women in the past, they are kind of being knocked back. Everything that those stereotypical things that women should be doing, or that's not ladylike, and things of that nature. You can see how a lot of those feminists that you see, I'm not talking about the crazy ones, but even the crazy ones, you can see how crazy they've gotten because they've had to endure such a stigma for so long. Women can't do this, women can't do that. Like the whole thing with women not doing men's jobs, or even all the way through the military. I mean, you might have your own thoughts on women being in infantry and things of that nature. I mean, I know I do. I don't know if they should be in infantry, only because of okay, so here's the thing that bothers me. Women, I mean, granted, everybody should be equal across the board, but this is reality. Women can't do everything a man can do, and men can't do everything a woman can do. Shit, men can't even do everything other men can do. Same thing that goes for women. So to put everything on a flat board, like if it's just this is what it is all the way through, it's unreasonable, and it's not likely to happen. So with that being said, the only reason I bring that up is because you have these people who, they get outraged and they don't even want you to hold the door open for them. That whole chivalry is dead kind of thing. And you can't really blame them. I mean, I don't blame them. I don't think you're really going to get far with doing that, because it doesn't do anything for, people to think a certain way. You're not going to break any stigmas by being a prude about those things. But I understand the sentiment behind it, and I understand why women of all colors and all races are fighting and striving for equality. So that's just my kind of tangent and my thoughts on women and the equality of women, because not all things, I mean, we're not all created equal. And granted, when it comes to laws and when it comes to rights, everything should be equal. It should be equal across the board. But it's not always that way. You got the whole wage gap conversation. That gets kind of muddied up, because people think if I'm doing a job and a woman is doing the exact same job, she's making 75 cents to the dollar. And that's the sentiment that's been going on. You may disagree, or that might really be happening in some situations or some cases, but that's not necessarily true. That's not, statistically, that's not true. They've taken and compiled a bunch of data, and a lot of women that go from, having these high careers because they a lot of those women who are that successful by being CEOs and all that and all those things, it's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But some of those women that go towards that, they don't find satisfaction in that, and there's nothing wrong with that either. A lot of women want to have families. And then I know personally some women who actually have kids and had a great career, they get attached. You ever heard of that I think it's postpartum depression, when after they had the baby, they have to go back to work and they get super depressed. So you can imagine the amount of women that actually go through that. Men, it's different because a man can be super attached to his kid, but at the end of the day, he didn't carry it in his belly for 9 months and give birth to it. He didn't go through that pain. So he's going to be, and that's another reason why you have maternity leave. And some companies now, they're pushing for it, just like I shared on the page. If you guys follow the page, Sears is pushing that grant for paternity leave for men who actually help having kids and stuff like that, which I think is awesome. It's another step towards equality, and I am not against that whatsoever. But once again, the whole wage gap thing there's a lot of differences with that. But there are a lot of misogynistic, dirty, nasty people who think you got to get ahead in life and do a little something for a piece of change, and it ain't helping. You got douchebags who are in positions of power who think, well, I mean, once again, we go back to the Me Too movement. You got Harvey Weinstein being a disgusting human being because, hey, you want this role, or you want to be famous. You gotta have this weird exchange with this disgusting fat thing, and it's about damn time that all that is actually coming out in the open. But as with everything, you have people muddying up the waters and making all these confusions with people because they think, oh, well, he didn't do this or he didn't do that. I didn't get what I'm trying to say is, some women actually use that to their advantage, and some women enjoy doing that. It's a conversation that I'll be having throughout this month with other women, granted, because who am I? Just a guy telling his thoughts on how women should be portrayed or whatever the case is. That's not exactly what I'm doing, but we'll be having those thoughts. I know I'm not going to get too hung up on that. I kind of just wanted to say, hey, it's Women's History Month. There's a lot to discuss about it. This is something that something that hits home pretty close to me because of all the women in my life. I have a wife. I don't have any kids yet, but I have a wife. I was raised by women. So I have a huge respect for women, and this is one of those things that I'm excited to talk about all month. One of the women I actually wanted to highlight for this theme, the theme is, once again, visionary women champions of peace and nonviolence. Well, the woman I wanted to highlight for this week is actually, her name is Dr. E. Faye Williams. She's an author. She's an activist for peace and human rights, and she actually undertook 200 women from around the world for the purpose of working to prevent the first Gulf War, and continues to protest injustice and brutal worldwide occupations. She also is the national chair for the National Congress of Black Women. I didn't even know that was a thing until I read that. So I thought that was really cool to share, because just a woman who's gone out of her, if there's anything that encompasses the theme for this month, it's this. She tried to prevent a Gulf War. She took 200 women from around the world. I thought that's something that you don't hear about these things. I think she wrote a book about it. I got to get you guys the title of the book so you can look it up yourself. But I thought that was pretty inspiring. And I know we always share really good things on the podcast. It's all about positivity and things like that, but you can't really speak on progression and positive and how forward thinking things have been going with people unless you share some of the negative. And one of the things, even though we've fought in this country, women, not me, but women have fought for such equality and active, protesting and doing marches and walks and fighting for equality, all the way to the point where they can run for president now. And we almost had a woman president. There's still a lot of injustices that are going on in the country and around the world, and some of them I kind of wanted just to list. So for one, there's, rapists can actually claim